It began with the forging of the great
hybrid dinosaurs.
7 to the Dwarf Lords, but they were all of them deceived. For another
Hybrid dinosaurs.
was made.
It's taken a long time for hybrid dinosaurs to really take root in the Jurassic franchise. Between the Indos and the Scorpius Rex, the Spinoceratops and soon the D-Rex, even if you want to suggest it's more of a mutant than a hybrid, it's hard to argue, whether you like it or not, that they are now a core part of the modern iteration of the franchise. Thematically, they make sense. They are an unnatural extension of the basal themes of this franchise: man's hubris, playing God, overzealous science. It's no surprise then that even though they weren't a factor in the original film trilogy, especially if we ignore those slightly suspicious writings on the Spinosaurus, they have actually been a factor in the franchise since all the way back in 1995. Back then, Topps, who you may well know for their Jurassic Park playing cards, released a comic series called Return to Jurassic Park. These are comparatively brutal compared to the film series, despite taking place concurrently with the first film, and feature a host of returning characters like Ellie Sattler, Robert Muldoon, and Alan Grant. Edition 5 of this comic series though introduces 2 new InGen researchers, Abby Nakajima and Derek Hoyle, and they're stumbling upon the hybrid experiments of a mad fellow InGen researcher, Dr. Gustavus, which is a very typical let's give the mad researcher a sort of Middle European name. And the man is as classic mad scientist looking as you can possibly imagine. Now he's got a whole thing about wanting to create hyper intelligent dinosaurs because he talks to them in his dreams, and among his chosen cohort is a tiny Triceratops, perhaps in a nod to Hammond's tiny elephant at the beginning of his own genetics journey, a feathered Avimimus, ahead of its time really, and, most importantly, an especially intelligent and dexterous Leielinosaurus. Now why is that one important? Because when the storm hits Isla Nublar on the 11th of June 1993, that's the same storm we see tearing through the island and ruining Dennis Nedry's plans, it tears down Gustavus's lab and drowns most of these dinosaur experiments. Not before, however, that especially dexterous Leielinosaurus can shakily pick up a gun and accidentally shoots Gustavus. Yes, a dinosaur shot a man. This franchise has always been bonkers if you look outside of the main films, and honestly, it doesn't calm down from here. 6 years ago in 2019, Philip J. Felix shared a bunch of artwork from a Spielberg-commissioned Jurassic Park cartoon, meant to launch along with The Lost World Jurassic Park, and appropriately called The Lost World Jurassic Park, the animated series. We've got a ton of artwork from this doomed, pun, series featuring brutal raptor pack attacks, pterosaurs flying alongside biplanes, raptors stalking some sort of military encampment, and, well, this thing, the Doomsday Rex. This is the creature's initial form, a gigantic octopus-tentacled, and keep that in mind, it'll be relevant in a little bit, beast, with a main sort of Rex-looking head and then 2 to the side that are sort of Rex-ish, but they're blind, misshapen monsters. Again, not too dissimilar to our modern D-Rex. And now, as much as this wouldn't have fit in with the film franchise at the time, bearing in mind this is, again, the Lost World era, it does make more sense for a kid-friendly, primetime animated show. Anyway, the Doomsday Rex, our original D-Rex, would eventually develop further into this 2-headed version which, with that thick tail and pair of decrepit front arms, again kind of resembles our modern D-Rex from Jurassic World Rebirth. This would have been, by quite some distance, the most powerful creature in Jurassic Park history. Just look at the other T-Rex and human on this image, they are to scale down there at the bottom. That makes the Doomsday Rex approximately 80 meters tall, and that is the same size as the Manchester Civil Justice Centre. Just to give you all a reference that you'll innately understand. Kenner, who made the toy line for Jurassic Park in the 90s, perhaps unsurpassed in the heart of the older Jurassic Park fans among us, because let me tell you, this electronic Dilophosaurus is still my favourite Jurassic Park toy of all time. Anyway, they started off relatively chill with dinosaurs like this Dilophosaurus, but eventually in 1998 they'd go on to produce the Chaos Effect toy line. Now this was meant to be created in conjunction with a television series which, again, never came to light. This has happened again and again with Jurassic Park. And the story was going to be, once again, a group of scientists visits one of the 5 deaths and, in an attempt to recreate the dinosaurs there, mixed the genetic samples across species rather than filling the gaps with frog DNA. That results in these bizarre, aggressive mutants, the most famous among them, of course, the Ultimasaurus. Now, the point of this history lesson really is just to show you that hybrid dinosaurs have been a pretty core part of this franchise outside of the main films for a long time now. And they didn't stop there. Things were about to get a whole lot weirder. In 2002, Universal hosted their annual Halloween Horror Nights event, this time entitled Islands of Fear, because it was the very first time it was hosted at Islands of Adventure in Orlando, Florida. This was designed as a linear series of themed scare zones that guests would wander through, and the 4th of these scare zones was Jurassic Park Extinction, and it came with its own original storyline, which is probably going to sound somewhat familiar. A mad scientist named Dr. Burton was mixing human and dinosaur DNA to create human-dinosaur hybrids, and that one sounds pretty familiar. Jurassic Park 4 come to life, finally. Dr. Burton was a leading scientist in the genetics department of Jurassic Park, but he was plagued by visions of an old man in a dark suit, a man corrupting him with darkness and a general evil vibe that's, very in these days. This man was the caretaker, Dr. Albert Kane, and he's not really relevant to the rest of this, but I like his hat a lot, so take a look. He was kind of the lead antagonist for this Halloween Horror Nights. Now, this evil vibe led to Dr. Burton committing unauthorized experiments in the Jurassic Park genetics facility, creating living hybrid dino men. Now, each scare zone in Islands of Fear had its own haunted house, and the Jurassic Park one, named Evolution, get it, it's good stuff, told the story of Dr. Burton and his dino men. These dino men would wander the park and the haunted house, clad in scientific garb but with misshapen, half dinosaur, half human heads. And the effects work is honestly pretty bloody great. It's grotesque and wibbly and agonizing looking, with human and dinosaur hybrids horrifically blending into one another. There's even at the start and the end of Evolution this decapitated Triceratops, its head torn from its body by the force and malice of these hybrid creations. It's giving Island of Dr. Moreau, a film which scared the life out of me as a child, I'll say, although I watched it fairly recently and it's not scary in the slightest, so I don't know what I was thinking as a child. And the Evolution haunted house ended much the same way the Island of Dr. Moreau did, with the mutated hybrids rising up to end the life of their creator. In this case, it was the dinosaur men hanging Dr. Burton in this fairly grim animatronic. You'll note as well that Dr. Burton's clothing is eerily similar to one Mr. John Hammond's. Anyway, the description for this scare zone says the following: the power is out. The gates are down. Packs of carnivorous dinosaurs are loose in the park, and there's something very strange, very deadly, stalking you as well. Now, there were indeed rogue packs of, in particular, velociraptors wandering in the park, but there was something much stranger out there as well. Grebnadu, the most bizarre hybrid in Jurassic history. Designed by famed creature designer Jim Udenberg as part of his Imaginarium FX line of creature designs, and of course named after him, Grebnadu is Udenberg backwards, mind blown pachow, Grebnadu was to be created by Dr. Burton alongside that roving gang of dino men, a hybrid unlike anything the franchise had seen until then or has seen since. I think ostensibly it was meant to have some form of Rex DNA there, but according to interviews between Udenberg and YouTuber Clayton Fioriti, the Grebnadu mainly consisted of aquatic animal DNA. We're talking primarily sea snake, anglerfish, octopus, octopi, octopodes, and a bunch of other unknown aquatics. This results in a truly bizarre head shape with this sharp single half of a beak that does resemble that of an octopus, presumably designed for the same purpose, the caving in of the shells of mollusks. However, given there's no bottom half to this beak, I'm not sure how much use it would have been for that task, and it probably served more purpose as a general stabbing implement rather than the more scissor type action that an octopus uses. To the side of the head you can see two elongated, drooping pustules. These are the anglerfish inspiration, lures that light up at night or in the dark depths, luring unsuspecting fish or people to the maw of the Grebnadu. You can just make out that faint orange glow emanating from the tip there. Now those are beset by two large fins, streamlining the beast to aid in its underwater movement, and at the front, the most noticeable design element really, a gigantic split jaw, smattered with teeth and a pair of especially long ones at the tip of each jaw. Now this is likely the sea snake inspiration come to life. Snakes have a split mandible, the lower jaw, supported by what's known as the quadrate. This is an immensely flexible bone at the back of the jaw. Now this doesn't allow them to dislocate their jaw, which is a very common myth, but instead it allows them to stretch these two disparate mandible sections apart, and therefore they can swallow much larger prey. This is likely, at least in a roundabout way then, the inspiration for the Grebnadu's mouth, as Udenberg was told to design something inspired by the famous graboid monsters from the Tremors series. Now they too have a split jaw like this. And snakes are really the only extant creature we have that had this, although there has recently been some evidence of some extinct spinosaurids possibly utilising something similar. It's also the only true aquatic hybrid we have in the franchise, and I like to imagine, in a weird way, it's kind of the natural conclusion of that Doomsday Octopus Rex from many years earlier. For all we know, the body of the Grebnadu was indeed a big old octopus. But we don't know, it was only ever designed as a head. So whilst there's a suggestion the body would have been somewhat like a sea serpent, it's hard to say for sure. This aquatic form is probably the original intention, a monstrous lake-born hybrid that would slither from the Jurassic Park lagoon, Isla Aventura, and pull screaming guests down into the depths to be devoured. There is though an unfortunate lack of evidence of this thing in the actual park during these Halloween Horror Nights. The best images we have of Grebnadu come from Udenberg himself pre-placement while it was being worked on in the workshop, and he also had a copy himself for his own house. But there's a brief clip here during MGKIMPG's whatever walkthrough of Islands of Fear that looks to somewhat resemble Grebnadu. I might be entirely wrong on this one, but it certainly has the right colour and what looks like those pulled back fin shapes on the side of the head. It's very difficult to tell at such low resolution, so do take that with a big old pinch of salt. But if this is Grebnadu, then its position here would suggest it really is an essential part of the story that went on in 2002. Indeed, it isn't actually referenced at all in the storyline of Dr. Burton. He just casually dropped this monstrous aquatic hybrid and went back to playing with his beloved dino men. Grebnadu was meant to pop out and surprise guests as they explored the park, and I believe it is meant to be part of the park itself, not the evolution section, which was kind of a self-contained maze haunted house experience. But information is really limited. This was 23 years ago now. Now I also went and scoured every frame of The Art of the Scare. This is a Halloween Horror Nights promotional documentary released to celebrate the 2002 edition of the event. And whilst it contains loads of great imagery for the evolution maze, and you've been watching that during this video, it doesn't seem to have anything on the Grebnadu at all. There's this very brief clip where they react to something behind a fence, but I do feel like I'm grasping at straws with this one. Given that this was 2002, we obviously don't have a ton of great footage and photos of the event. But there's a few videos out there. I watched some really obscure, like sub 1,000 views, family videos from this event, and there just isn't any mention of Grebnadu anywhere in these videos. I think it is obviously meant to be that something very strange, very deadly stalking you as referenced in the description. But it seems that when it came to actual final production, it was given pretty short shrift in the park itself. I believe I've watched every single video of this event. I've probably watched hours of footage today of this event, and Grebnadu really is nowhere to be seen clearly. And it does seem there was no narrative build up to it within the event itself, with evolution focusing on the dinosaur men and the demise of Dr. Berg. So I suspect in the end, Grebnadu was shunted off to the side and used primarily as a jump scare prop and very little else. It's a bit of a shame for something so uniquely bizarre. Despite that though, the Grebnadu, despite only existing as a head and with such little evidence for its existence, it still looms large in the hearts of Jurassic fans. And that's probably just due to being bonkers, basically. In fact, when the official Jurassic World Evolution 2 Discord channel pulled their April Fool's joke a little bit earlier this year, they did it by announcing a new title, Planet Jurassic, Planet Zoo, but with a Jurassic twist. And what animal did they choose to use as their logo? That's right, Grebnadu. It's a strange little testament to how this fanbase as a whole will latch on to just about anything and elevate it far higher than its original status. Grebnadu is, despite its lack of appearances, a bit of a legend, and whilst it's very unlikely to ever return in an official capacity, it lives on even decades later now at the depths of the Jurassic iceberg.